Hi everyone, I'm Harley D, and today we're going to be making bass like this.
Cosmic sounds.
And bass like this. Okay, so let's get straight into it then. Right, so the track we're going to be going over today is actually a track that I released on Grid Recordings last year called Cosmic Sounds. So yeah, we're going to be going over the main bass in this track. But yeah, before we get into it, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's been showing support on the channel, watching the video, subscribing. Just hit 1K, so yeah, big ups to everyone showing support. I'm just going to give the track a play, and then we'll go straight into the how it's all made.
Cosmic sounds.
So yeah, that's the track. And we're going to be going over that sort of like sci-fi foghorn sort of bass. So yeah, we're going to break it down into different stages. But just to start off with, I'm just going to go through the master bus processing because the track's made quite quietly. So this is what's actually driving the signal up quite a lot. So what I'll do is I'll turn the processing off, just so you can listen to it, listen to the track and everything without the processing on. So, you can hear the sound is still the same, but obviously it hasn't got that sort of level that it needs. So if you're going to recreate it, you would want to use, sort of similar sort of processing to get the level up and get the sort of thickness to the sound, the extra sort of saturation that you'd need. So let me break it down for you. I'm going to go through the processing now. To start off with, I'm using FabFilter Saturn, but this isn't going to be crucial to the sound itself. It's just going to be for gelling the mix. I'm using the Magic Mastering preset. So yeah, this is just helping give it a bit of top end sort of like fizzle, clarity, and just controlling the low end. I find it helps with that. But yeah, it's like I said, it's more for gelling the mix together. Next up, I've got an EQ. So I'm cutting it at like 15 hertz, quite a steep slope there. And I'm cutting it at 20K as well, quite a steep slope again. But I'm pushing up 400 hertz by like 2 dB. I've got the about 2K to 3K being pushed up by like 1.5 dB, and around about 8K as well, about 1.5 dB, and it's also got like a shelf there to bring it all up there. So the shelf's at 400 hertz as well, and it brings it up by another dB. So we get about 3 dB to 3.5 tops of gain in this sort of area, and that focuses in like the sort of sections of the track. So for example, 400 hertz is where the character of this, the tonal aspect of the mid bass is. 2 to 3K is where the snap of the snare is, and obviously, like we've got top end around about 8K. So it's helping focus in these frequencies basically in the on the master, and pushing them out of the mix as well, and creating a bit more LUFS and saturation as it hits the soft clip in this sort of area. But yeah, next up, I've got a K clip, and this is just going to be basically clipping the peaks off. So I'll just play that. So you can see, it's not doing too much. We're not driving the signal here. We're just clipping the peaks, 5 dB of peaks getting clipped there. The next plugin is Elevate, and this is a common way I'm making my masters basically. So yeah, I'm using like 3 dB of limiting. The speed set to 1 millisecond there. The ceiling's at 0.1, 28% on the transient emphasis, and 8 dB of drive on the soft clip. So I've actually changed the clipper shape to 33%. So that's just blending it between soft and hard clipping, but mainly soft clipping. So yeah, that's pretty much that's everything on this master bus. But yeah, just to be aware, obviously, if you recreate it using the preset that I'll put in the description below and the post-processing, you're also going to want to use this processing here. And if you're just wanting to create the bass and get this sort of thickness and full sound, you could use that bus there as a bass bus, essentially. So yeah. And obviously substitute out, if you've got another soft clipper, you can use something else. You don't have to use those ones, exactly. The main thing that to take note of that is the soft clipping, essentially, and a bit of limiting. So yeah, let's go now straight into the Serum patch. And what I'm going to do is turn off all of the processing on the channel. It's actually also getting sent through to a bus. So it's called the mid bus because basically it's going to be a full bass and we're going to use that to create just a mid, essentially. And then we're going to layer it up with a sub. So I'll show you that after. So I'm going to turn the processing on that mid bus off as well, so we can just hear the Serum patch as it comes straight from Serum. So yeah, let's play that. So you can hear it's got all the tonal aspect, the movement, etc., but it hasn't got the sort of like texture, width, and sort of like the dimension and all the grit to the sound, has it? Or the thickness. So yeah, that's all going to be coming in the post processing. But let's break down the Serum patch first. So I'm going to be using a sine wave, turn the random phase off just from the basic shapes, and then if you go to the digital folder and you choose the harmonic series, and turn the random off there, and also I've got 6 voices to create some width in this oscillator B. So then I'm using LFO3. So I'm just going to show you the levels first, 6.5 and 6, and the master's at 6 there, -6 probably. And I'm just going to show you the MIDI as well. So it's all at F1, and then I'm dropping the octaves down by -1. And yeah, the main thing here, before I'll take the filter off, and we'll take that off. So as you can see, LFO3, that's the only LFO we got, is moving the wavetable position of the harmonic series. And what that's doing is creating extra sine wave cycles, essentially increasing the pitch. And if I go to the matrix, I'm just going to show you, it's set from, it goes up to 57. So from the bottom, 57 up on the matrix, and with this sort of shape. So it's on trigger mode. The rate's set to 2 bars. So it creates, it starts off low and then it builds up when you can see it rising here. And if I was to move this line here, it would change where the wavetable position stops, so we can get variation from that, which I'll show you in the variation once we've gone through the post-processing. But yeah, that's everything on the oscillator side of things. Then what I'm doing is running in the, because this is just a sub, this one here. So I'm taking oscillator B into a high pass, setting a cutoff at 440 hertz, resonance at 36, drives at 38 there. That's everything on that. So what that's doing is removing the sub from the harmonic series oscillator, just so it keeps the other sub pure and focusing this harmonic series in the mid range. And then I'm going to be driving it into the soft clipper, full amount there, full mix, and then I'm putting it into the chorus. What I've got, the LPF 1000, the feedback's at 10, the depth's at 26, delay 2's at 0, and delay 1's at 5 milliseconds, rates at 0.08, and the mix is at 50. So yeah, that is just to add a bit of stereo width for obviously saturating the signal a bit there together. So yeah, that's everything on the patch. And what I'll do is I'll leave the patch in the description so you can download it, follow along, and try and see what you can get from the sound with the post-processing yourself. So yeah, let's go into the channel processing now. So we've got that. I've turned the channel down by 3 dB. And I'm going to start off with this EQ here. So at the moment we've got the sub in the sound, and what I'm wanting to do is just bring up the low mids a bit more. So that gives a bit more warmth to the signal. And that's everything there. That doesn't need to be on there. And I'm also boosting the sub a little bit. So 5 dB there and 17. So quite a lot of boost on this on the low mids. And I'm just creating space in between it by like dipping this down by 8 to create that sort of shape. But this is where the main thing comes from, is decapitator. So this is going to be now distorting that sort of like the tonal aspect, the character of the sound around about the mid range with the sub. So I'm using the mode called T, and I've turned the drive up to 5. So now we get some like modulation in between these frequencies, some extra sort of saturation. So if I show you on span, creates a nice sort of a tone now and shape. So yeah, that's why we're using the decapitator to sort of like mesh them together essentially and create a new sort of sound. And then I'm going to be using the Blease chorus. I've shown, I've spoke about this one before. I think it's pretty cheap. And I'm just using the rainbow preset and turning the, I think I've turned this down a little bit to 32%. But yeah, you can see all the settings there. This is just going to help create a bit more stereo width to the sound. I think it makes it a bit thicker actually. So if you have a little listen. Yeah, so I really like what that's doing. It's creating a bit more thickness to the sound. So yeah, just a little bit of chorus on it essentially. If you don't have that, you could try another chorus, see what results you can get with that. And like I said, if you don't have Decapitator either, you could try another sort of saturation distortion plugin. I think the key to that is just to not go too far and destroy the signal, just to give it a bit of room. But get that sort of like a nice saturation to the sound. Next up is an EQ. So what I'm going to do now is cut out all the low frequencies, and I'm doing that in mid-side mode. So I'm cutting the low frequencies out in the mids, in the mid part of the signal, mono part of the signal, at 72 hertz. And then on the sides, I'm cutting off the low end at 285 hertz. And I'm boosting the mids at 887, the mid side of the mid part of the signal at 887 hertz by like 3 dB. And I'm dropping the full stereo signal at 3K by 9 dB. So if I just play that. I thought that was a bit too much in that range. Like I said, it can hurt your ears. You got to be quite careful there. So I'm just trying to tame that a little bit first before I bring it out any further. But yeah, next up, what I'm doing is I'm using Shaper Box just to turn down as the sound finishes. And I'm doing that because what I'm going to do is add a reverb tail to it. So I found that shaping this part of the signal as it finishes really helped that tail blend more in. And I just thought it was a bit loud there. So it's not by a lot, but as you can see, as the signal plays, it's going to get quieter here. So yeah, it's just to create my own dynamics to the sound through volume enveloping. And I think that's everything on the channel, and then that's getting run into the mid bus. Okay, so yeah, let's have a look at the bus processing. So this is going to be run into mid bus 1. And the first plugin I've got on there is just a sidechain. I'm using the volume enveloper on Shaperbox 3, just so when the kick hits, that'll get dug. That's just for mix purposes. It's not going to be building the sound up. And then I've got Valhalla Room, and it's such a short decay at the moment and a short mix amount. You can see the settings there. It's not going to be too audible. So let me just play that. But what will happen is when I get to this sort of like end of phrase, the decay will start to open up. So it just helps create some variation and depth to the mix, basically, so it's not so static. So yeah, that's why the reverb's there. It's just to open up. It does add a little bit of reverb, obviously, because it's such a short decay. So it is adding a little bit more stereo whip to the sound as well. But yeah, next up I've got texture. So that's creating the sort of texture on top of the sound, the sort of white noise. So if you don't have this plugin, there is like, if you've got Ableton, there's erosion you can use. There's quite a cheap one called Denise Noise that does a very similar thing. If you want to get something that does this, it's really handy. Shaperbox also does this. It has the noise module, but I've opted for texture here. So yeah, I've basically cut out all of the low end from the white noise. I've turned the attack, hold, decay down. And the mix is at 82% dry. So this will follow now the signal. And it will also follow the reverb. So that's why I put the texture after the reverb. So if you have a listen here, you'll hear the texture on top of that reverb. Creates a nice little crunch to the reverb. So yeah, I think that's everything there for the bus processing. And what I've actually done here, so I've basically, for the variation, I'm just going to go through that now. You see here, instead of that dot being right to the top, it's now like sitting just below that. So that means the wavetable position won't be going all the way up. So it's going to be getting a lower pitch. So if I just play that. So if I was to move this down here, you'll hear how it will change. So yeah, you can get loads of different possibilities with this here. You can create different shapes, different rates, all sorts of different things you can do with this. But yeah, in terms of the matrix, I think I've also just set that to 54, and I think the original one was at 57. Yeah, 57. But yeah, that's how I'm getting the variation. And also you can go up the pitch if you basically go here. You could turn the pitch up by just moving this up here. This from 54 can go up to 62 or something. So yeah, that's how the variation's being made. And I think that's pretty much everything, except what I've done here on the first one. So the second one is just dry, but what I've done is I've bounced this out. So what I've done is turned all of the master bus processing off, like that. And then I've bounced it out. So when it goes back in, it will then hit the master bus. I didn't want to bounce it out and then obviously get the master bus processing twice. So I turn it off, render it out, and then I'll put that back on. So I've got it in audio now, just so I could see it. I think it's because there was something weird happening with it. But yeah, that led me to do that. And I've just split it to mid 1A, mid 1B. And sometimes it's good to also do this because you can resample, you could stretch it, reverse it. And in fact, I did do that to create loads of different edits around the track in this folder here. But yeah, in terms of what I've actually done when I've got to this sound here on this one, I've actually added a effects send. And I found that the signal at the moment was just a bit dry. I wanted to give it a tail, like I was saying earlier. So what I've done is I've automated the volume of this effects send to come up like this. So as the sound finishes, the volume of this effects send will get louder. And the effects send is this reverb, essentially. So, you know, you can copy these settings here or use any reverb. It's quite a short decay. I just like the way this Pro R1 sounded. And then I'm going to use an EQ to focus it in around about 500 hertz to 8K. And I've just dipped this frequency here, which I didn't really want to be hearing in a reverb. So I'll play that for you now. So what I'm going to do is mute this one here, and I'll play this now. So yeah, it creates another sort of like depth to the sound, a bit more width to it, and it tails it off nicely so it's not as dry. And it creates contrast now because I don't do the same to the variation, so it's creating contrast between these two sections. So this one's got more of a dry tail, essentially, as compared to this one. So yeah, that's everything. I'm pretty sure that's everything now. The final thing was just this EQ here, which is a mix EQ. You can see where the main frequency is. I just thought it was a bit loud, so I'm dropping it by like 3 dB on the first version. But yeah, that's obviously something you'll do once you've got this whole sound here. And say you put it all through to a bus, you can then put your final EQ, mix EQ after this bus. Or before, it's up to you how you want to work it. But yeah, I always like to have a final EQ just to create, you know, cohesion and make sure the frequencies are not popping out too much or they are popping out enough. So yeah, that's everything. And let's just have a quick look at this sub that it's being layered up with. Once again, we've got it at F1, and it is just literally a sine wave that is being run through to the soft clip, and I've driven it all the way up. So it's, you know, it's really, really basic. I'm just gonna have a look at the settings on here. So yeah, that is it. Really, there's not even an EQ on it. I've got it set to like 14.9 dB because most of the drive is being done on the master bus. So yeah, other than that, there is this cool thing you can do as well. So what I've done is I'll just show you this here. Shaperbox, I'm using the filter module. And if you turn it to 116T and set this sort of shape up here, you can get this really cool like alien effect. So yeah, I thought that worked really cool with the sort of like, you know, sci-fi sort of sound. Yeah, and that's just like creating that really fast wobble to the sound. But yeah, obviously there's so much more stuff you can do with this sound. You can get quite creative with it. You can change the rates, the timing of it all, the pitch. So yeah, you know, experiment with that. Like I said, I'll leave the preset in the description so you can try and do the post processing and learn from that. But yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to go over in this video. So yeah, if you like the video, hit the like button. If you want to see more like this, subscribe. And if you want to support me, I'll put my link to Patreon in the description. So lots of exclusive tracks, sample packs, production videos, and also massive thanks to everyone subscribing recently and showing support. It's been wicked.